Welcome to Cleaner Air Oregon's Introduction to Industrial Air Toxics in Oregon webinar. My name is Leah Feldon from DEQ, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Thank you for joining us for this interactive session, which is the first of two such online events scheduled during the next month. On April 6th, 2016, Governor Kate Brown announced the launch of Cleaner Air Oregon, a new initiative to reform industrial air toxics regulations and align them with public health. DEQ and OHA have begun a formal rulemaking process to engage the public in creating human health risk-based rules for industrial facilities for consideration by the EQC. Today we are going to hear from four speakers. Sarah Armitage, Senior Air Toxics Analyst from DEQ's Air Quality Planning section, will present Air Toxics 101, an overview of Oregon air pollution regulation with a focus on air toxics. Madonna Navarez, Air Toxics Specialist at EPA Region 10, will present federal air toxics regulations as they apply in and/or affect Oregon. David Farrer, Public Health Toxicologist from the Oregon Health Authority, will present on what health considerations go into developing a risk-based program and how to assess risk for health considerations. Meyer Goldstein, Agency Rulemaking Coordinator at DEQ, will present Rulemaking 101, how rulemaking works and public engagement points in the process. After that, we'll take questions from the public for our panelists. With that, I'll turn it over to Sarah to discuss air toxics in Oregon.
Thank you, Leah. Hello to everyone connected to our webinar today. My name is Sarah Armitage. I work in DEQ's Air Quality Planning section. I'm the agency's lead on air toxics planning, and I will give you an overview of DEQ's air quality program with a focus on our air toxics program. For over 40 years, DEQ's air quality program has been reducing air pollution and making Oregon safer. We've had great success reducing pollution and restoring Oregon's air to meet federal health standards. And across the state, DEQ's air quality program has drastically reduced smog, also known as ozone pollution, carbon monoxide, fine particulate, and other types of pollution to better protect public health. But we have much more to do. Federal air quality standards for ozone and fine particulate have become even more protective in recent years as we gain a better understanding of what these pollutants do for people's health. Climate change is a major challenge for us and others, and it's also an opportunity for DEQ to work with a variety of partners to reduce greenhouse gas pollution. The emissions of air toxics can be a significant risk to public health, and they are one of the most challenging and scientifically complex areas for air quality. Our air quality science of monitoring and estimating emissions tells us more each day about air pollution in Oregon, and all of our partnerships help us learn where we need to focus our resources to be effective. We feel good about all that we've accomplished and also the high quality staff work that went into it. We're also excited and challenged by the new work ahead to meet federal air standards, address climate change, and further reduce air toxics. Our current air toxics regulatory overhaul under Cleaner Air Oregon is a very big step forward to give us all more tools to protect air quality and public health for all citizens in all locations. In air quality, our main challenges and focus for public health protection are fine particulate pollution, which causes lung and heart health problems, ozone, which causes airway inflammation, and air toxics that cause multiple serious health effects like elevated cancer risk, neurological damage, and airway inflammation. There are three examples of air toxics pictured here. Our other environmental priorities are climate change and helping protect visibility in Oregon's many wilderness areas and our only national park, which is Crater Lake. Many of the sources we deal with, like wood stoves, diesel engines, and motor vehicles, emit many different kinds of air pollution, so cleaning up any one of those sources will have positive benefits for many air pollutants. DEQ takes many actions to reduce air pollution. Here are a few examples. On ozone pollution, DEQ has successfully worked in Portland and Medford to meet and maintain ozone standards. We're starting work this year in the Hermiston area to look at elevated levels and pollutants that move across state boundaries for ozone. These could affect Eastern Oregon and Eastern Washington. DEQ has also had great success helping communities like Medford, Klamath Falls, Grants Pass, Lakeview, and LeGrand come into compliance with fine particulate health standards. For visibility, our regional haze program shows generally improving visibility trends across Oregon, although wildfires still impact visibility and health each season. In air toxics, we've operated a clean diesel program since 2001. With this program, we've helped people, engine owners, get grants and other assistance to clean up their engines and change to cleaner engines. We have had recent successes in the Portland area recently, working with local government to control wood smoke. We are in the process of updating our air toxics benchmarks. These are also known as clean air goals, and we have multiple assessments in progress for pollutants recently revealed through the MOS screening. Generally speaking, in air quality, EPA sets national air quality standards and goals, and then DEQ also sets some standards and makes regulations. We then monitor and assess, we develop strategies, we implement the strategies through regulatory activities and permits, we assist people with compliance, and we perform compliance and enforcement when we need to. DEQ is responsible for air quality in all parts of Oregon except for Lane County, where the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency has jurisdiction. DEQ provides oversight of the Lane County program. The air program is constantly evolving through better understanding of science, health effects, and the impacts of pollution sources. We're also discovering more effective ways to reduce pollution and, as we've seen recently, identifying the gaps in coverage of our program, and these provide us opportunities to improve what we do. Both EPA and DEQ set pollution control standards for Oregon. The state carries out federal requirements and in many cases then goes beyond federal law to further protect public health and tailor programs to state needs. Under the federal requirements, we implement health-based standards for pollutants like ozone and particulate by developing emission reduction plans for airsheds that violate the standards. We take delegation of numerous federal technology-based standards and implement them by including them in Title V permits for our largest facilities or in air contaminant discharge permits for the medium and smaller facilities. And our next speaker will be giving you a little bit more detail about these federal requirements. Nationally, EPA has enacted requirements for cleaner cars and other engines and regulations that decrease harmful emissions from gasoline and diesel fuels. And then in the state air program, we have efforts that parallel and also complement the federal requirements. We help those communities that are violating federal standards or close to violating federal standards with prevention plans, and this keeps them out of the violation status and away from the significant economic burdens that can come with that designation. We also have a unique state air toxics program with air concentrations or goals for 52 air toxics, and these are known as benchmarks. They're extremely protective levels that people could breathe for a lifetime without additional cancer risk beyond 1 in a million or experiencing any non-cancer health effects. We monitor air toxics in communities statewide, and then we compare those results to our benchmarks to understand what impacts the pollutants could be having on people nearby. We work with communities to understand and reduce air toxics. And then Oregon's Clean Diesel program helps engine owners move to cleaner engines. For clean diesel, we continue to strategize on ways to speed the change to clean engines. The health-based permitting regulations, which are under development, will make our state-based approach to air toxics more complete. Oregon goes beyond federal regulations by adopting and implementing the California Clean Car Standards, and we've supported the electrical charging infrastructure statewide. We've also operated a vehicle inspection and maintenance program in Portland and Medford for many years, and these programs ensure that vehicles operate as cleanly as possible. DEQ has several state programs to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions in both the electricity sector and from transportation fuels. So another important thing we do is monitoring. And monitoring lets us know about compliance with federal standards and also how close we are to air toxics clean air goals. We have about 45 air monitoring sites across the state. Some monitors are for single pollutants and other monitors are for multiple pollutants. If you are looking at our map, the map shows blue dots where we have annual sites, and at these locations we monitor year-round primarily for particulates like smoke, soot, and also for smog. We also have some air toxic sites around the state as well. On the map, the red triangles represent summer sites where we monitor for pollutants that peak in the summer, such as ozone and particulate from forest fires and agricultural burning. We operate 4 monitors currently to sample for the full spectrum of air toxics. As part of the response to Portland metals concerns, DEQ is currently running 11 short-term metals monitors. We also use monitoring to inform communities about pollutant levels that could cause problems for people's health. We do this during forest fires, when there is a lot of particulate in the air, and also on days when there's a temperature inversion that allows particulate to build up in the atmosphere, and these are times when wood burning is not advised. Air toxics monitoring is key to understanding emissions and potential health impacts, and in many ways it's an evolving science. For air toxics monitoring, we use several different types of equipment. Different groups of pollutants require different techniques to capture them and also to be analyzed. So these separate pieces of equipment gather the compounds, they go to our lab, they get analyzed, and we look at the data. We monitor for many different reasons. First of all, we develop new methods and techniques, and we explore what monitoring can tell us. So this is part of monitoring being an evolving science. We're always looking at new ways to understand air toxics. We also do air toxics monitoring to understand trends over time. And for this, we have 2 long-term sites. One is in Portland, in North Portland, and the other is in La Grande. To survey and assess communities statewide, we've conducted year-long assessments for air toxics in Medford, Klamath Falls, and Hillsborough. We recently finished an assessment in North Portland above Swan Island, and we're currently doing an assessment in the Johnson Creek neighborhood of Southeast Portland. This fall, we're prepared to begin a monitor in Gresham in the Rockwood neighborhood. We also conduct special studies to support investigation. So, for example, the air toxics monitoring we did in Southeast Portland was part of a special study to identify sources of cadmium and a partnership with the U.S. Forest Service to use moss as an urban air pollution screening tool. Our technologies to monitor are improving, and tools like moss screening will help us place more monitors in the future. So when we look across the state and we see what progress have we made in meeting standards, we see many communities that DEQ has helped to meet and maintain compliance with those federal ozone standards and particulate standards. If you're looking at our map on the screen, you might see green stars. There are many of these. They show success stories, and these are communities that have reduced emissions and come back into compliance. And now we work with those communities to help maintain compliance with the federal standards. We have black triangles. They show areas currently in violation of the particulate standard. We're working with them. Gray triangles show areas that exceed the particulate standard, but they're not yet officially in violation. They haven't been designated by EPA. So we're working with those communities to lower particulate and avoid official violations. You also might see white triangles on this map. These are areas of concern. We've had recent levels that have bumped up above the federal standard, but not often enough to make a violation. Again, we're doing prevention planning in these communities. A community's status on meeting federal air standards is related to air toxics because the sources of particulate and ozone also produce air toxics. So whenever we go in and do a reduction plan for a particular ozone, we're also reducing many air toxics like benzene and naphthalene. So now I'll discuss a little bit more about Oregon's air toxics program and explain it in some detail. As I mentioned earlier, air toxics come from many sources, the majority of which also produce criteria pollutants such as particulate or chemical precursors to ozone. Generally, what we see when we do modeling and monitoring is that most people in our state are exposed to risk from area sources such as wood burning and mobile sources such as diesel and gasoline engines, especially near busy roadways. For those living close to industrial facilities, air toxics emissions can also add unwanted increases in health risk, as we've recently discovered near art glass facilities. There are 3 basic tracks in Oregon's air toxics program. First, we implement federal standards for industry through permits. Doing so has resulted in significant reductions of air toxics statewide for our largest facilities under the Title V permits and a whole spectrum of medium and smaller facilities under the state permits. Second, we have health protective levels or benchmarks for 52 air toxics, which I mentioned before, and using these benchmarks, we assess communities under a geographic approach to reducing risk. We look at all of the sources of air toxics in a community. We try to understand what are the biggest risks and where they're coming from, and we devise a plan to reduce those risks. So this approach includes the Portland Air Toxics Solutions Project, which was our first effort working with a community to identify and make plans to reduce air toxics risk. These include plans for wood burning, diesel engines, gasoline cars and trucks, and metals facilities. We also consider actions to reduce air toxics emissions from sources statewide. For example, we have our clean diesel program. We have Heat Smart, which requires change out of old dirty wood stoves upon sale of a home. And we've also become more protective for gas stations when they're refueling their underground storage tanks, and we have regulations making sure that they capture additional benzene vapors which could escape. Third, we have progressively cleaner engines as EPA sets standards for new gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles. The current situation where we've identified metals emissions at levels of concern from art glass facilities has highlighted what we and others have called a gap or a risk gap in our regulations for air toxics. If you're looking at the graphic, the outer circle, the whole shape, roughly illustrates all of the air toxics in our state. And the ovals within show levels of coverage. So for example, there's an inner circle that shows the federal air toxics regulations. And Madonna will go into more detail about this, but this includes several steps, including technology-based requirements and a look back at the regulations to make sure that they're as protective as they could be. So federal regulations have been very effective nationally and in our state at reducing air toxics, but there are limitations. They're fairly generic in nature. They're not tailored to each facility. They don't require site-specific risk assessment or risk reduction. So in some cases, they may adequately reduce potential health impacts, and others they may not. So on our slide, if you're looking at it, the middle ring shows the Oregon Air Toxics Program, which encompasses our geographic solutions, and these cover part of the emissions, and we think they're best suited to dealing with emissions from area sources such as wood stoves and mobile sources. They're not very specific to industrial emissions. So the outer ring really represents the industrial air toxics emissions that are not adequately addressed by either federal regulations or Oregon's current risk-based approach. So finally, I'd like to end with some good news that much of our work has benefits for multiple pollutants. We approach much of our work from a multi-pollutant perspective, targeting and reducing the many pollutants that come from common sources. This can be more complex, but it's also efficient, effective, and it utilizes many partnerships. Traditionally, DEQ addressed one pollutant at a time, but now we think more in terms of multi-pollutant benefits. Because sources of air pollution emit multiple pollutants, our source control efforts are effective for multiple pollutants. For example, cleaner engines and cleaner fuels reduce particulate, air toxics, ozone, greenhouse gases, and pollutants affecting visibility. We also know that the industrial controls in place statewide have benefits for all categories of pollutants as well. Now Madonna Narvaez, EPA's Northwest Air Toxics Coordinator, will talk about federal requirements.
Thank you, Sarah and Leah, for inviting me to participate in this air toxics webinar. My name is Madonna Narvaez, and I'm a senior air toxics specialist with the EPA. I've been working on hazardous air pollutants or air toxics for over 13 years. Up to now, Sarah has described what Oregon DEQ does to protect Oregon citizens' air quality and public health. The Oregon DEQ Air Toxics Program has as its basis the federal rules promulgated by EPA to address air toxics and public health. Okay. Congress called for EPA to issue national limits for air toxics, covering each category of major sources and selected area sources, or smaller sources. These standards are designed to ensure that facilities throughout the nation control their toxic emissions in a timely manner. States such as Oregon are given the opportunity to take full or partial approval for the promulgated rules, while ensuring that their programs are at least as stringent as the federal rules. Annually, Oregon requests delegation for most of the rules EPA has promulgated. In some cases, such as the gas dispensing area source rule, Oregon has to substitute their own rule, which they believe is more stringent than the federal rule. The focus of the federal effort has been to control first, beginning with larger sources, then to assess risk later to ensure that the control is enough. To that end, between 1990 and 2012, EPA has issued 97 technology-based standards covering 174 major source categories, as well as developing area source rules for over 68 categories that address 90% of the worst urban hazardous air pollutants. The first phase involves developing standards that are based on the top performing 12% of facilities in a category. For existing sources, EPA must set standards that require at least the level of performance already achieved by the average of the top performing 12% of similar sources. These provisions, known as the MACT floor, or maximum available control technology, are designed to ensure that the higher emitting sources in an industry make improvements to bring emissions in line with levels that are already being achieved in practice by the lower emitting sources. The resulting performance standards give all sources the flexibility to decide the most cost-effective way to comply. The second phase is where EPA does a health, risk, and technology evaluation to determine whether the original standards that were developed provide an ample margin of safety to protect public health, prevent adverse environmental effects, and or to ensure that the most up-to-date MAC technologies are being used, or if there have been new emissions reduction strategies developed that should now apply to this category. So recent examples of these rules that apply to Oregon include dry cleaners, where dry cleaning, one of the major parts of that rule is that dry cleaning facilities may no longer be co-located in residential buildings. And then chromium electroplaters, where the compliance language was made more stringent, as well as removing the startup shutdown malfunction conditions, and thereby making the limits applicable all the time. The upcoming rules, risk and technology rules include in 2017, EPA will be proposing a rule for the Portland cement manufacturers, and in 2018, we will be developing a final rule for the pulp and paper combustion. So I'd like to leave you with these points. Air toxics impacts depend upon exposure to the source of the air toxics emissions. Impacts depend on concentration of the pollutants, as well as duration of exposure to those pollutants. The national program, by necessity, is developed for broad categories, and any risk assessment we do is based on national averages. Therefore, local community effects and needs are, of course, better addressed by site-specific risk assessments, such as those that Oregon DEQ performs and are working on now. And now, Dave Farrer of the Oregon Health Authority will discuss health considerations for developing a risk-based program and how to assess risk for health considerations. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Donna.
I'm David Fair. I'm a public health toxicologist with the Oregon Health Authority's Public Health Division. Oregon Health Authority's Public Health Division has a vision of lifelong health for all Oregonians and a mission to promote health and prevent the leading causes of death, disease, and injury in Oregon. The Oregon Health Authority is interested in air quality because air toxics increase risk of diseases linked to many of Oregon's leading causes of death, such as cancer, heart disease, and chronic lower respiratory disease. OHA works routinely with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality on environmental health issues. OHA advises DEQ on setting targets and goals that are protective of public health, including the most vulnerable members of our communities. Setting health-based targets based on these health protective criteria is OHA's main contribution to this regulatory reform effort. While we rely on DEQ for environmental monitoring to tell us what is in the environment and how much, DEQ turns to OHA to determine what environmental monitoring results mean for the health of exposed communities. OHA's role is to determine the significance of DEQ's environmental sampling data for public health, and OHA also translates that information into actionable recommendations to DEQ, other agencies, or the public, depending on who needs to take the action to protect public health. When the needed action falls under OHA's roles and authorities, then OHA acts directly to protect public health. The health effects from exposure to toxic chemicals depends on the amount we are exposed to, the length of time we are exposed, and the route of exposure. Route of exposure refers to the way the chemical gets into our bodies. For example, swallowing, inhalation, or through the skin. In the case of air toxics regulations, we are primarily talking about the inhalation route, although other routes can be important for some air toxics. Toxic chemicals that we take in through inhalation have a more direct route into our bloodstream than chemicals that we swallow. This is because they don't pass through the liver for detoxification prior to distribution to the rest of the body, the way that swallowed chemicals do. Everything that gets absorbed into the bloodstream from the digestive system, including toxic chemicals, goes through the liver for metabolism and detoxification before entering the general circulation. Toxic chemicals absorbed into the bloodstream through lungs go straight to the heart and then the rest of the body without processing in the liver. Another reason air toxics are especially important is that we have less choice about exposure than with contaminants in other places. When soil or water are contaminated with toxic chemicals, we can avoid exposure by not interacting with the soil or by drinking water from an alternate clean source. But if toxic chemicals are in our air, we have no choice about whether to breathe. Not all people have the same level of risk from exposure to toxics. to air toxics. Children are more susceptible than healthy adults for a few reasons. First, they breathe more air for their body size than adults do, so their exposure is higher given the same air concentration. Second, children are passing through phases of development. A disturbance in a critical developmental process can permanently alter the trajectory of a child. The elderly can be more susceptible because of reduced lung capacity and function, and they have a higher likelihood of pre-existing health conditions that reduce their capacity to repair damage caused by air toxics. Communities dealing with other risk factors for disease, such as poverty or other negative social indicators of health, can also have increased vulnerability. For example, property near an industrial source or highway may be cheaper than housing in other areas, meaning that industrial or transportation-related sources of air toxics may have a disproportionate impact on communities in need. While industrial sources are only a portion of the overall contribution to air quality issues in Oregon, it makes sense to make reductions where we can for the health of all Oregonians. One of OHA's primary roles in the statewide regulatory reform process will be to ensure that the limits set on industrial emissions through the permitting process are protective of public health, including our most vulnerable citizens, such as children and the elderly. I would now like to turn the time over to Myra Goldstein, Operations Policy Analyst at DEQ.
I'm Myra Goldstein. I'm the Agency Rules Coordinator for the Department of Environmental Quality. I'm going to talk briefly about the rulemaking process. The primary responsibility I have in this position is to ensure that DEQ adopts the best rules possible, and there are a couple of elements to that. The first element is that we try to involve the public to the greatest extent possible in our rulemaking process. The next element is that we have to follow all of the legal requirements to ensure that once we adopt our rules, they're effective and legally effective. And finally, as we write the rules, we try to ensure that the language we use and the way they're written makes them as readable and understandable as possible for anyone that needs to access them. So what is an administrative rule? An administrative rule is actually an extension of the law. It comes from the legislature's ability to make laws, and the legislature delegates to administrative agencies the authority to make rules. DEQ, as an agency, only can make the rules that the legislature authorizes us to make. And in DEQ's case, we're a little bit of an unusual organization in that we have a commission that actually adopts our rules. So DEQ develops and proposes the rules, and the Environmental Quality Commission actually adopts the rules into law. So what is an administrative rule? It's a statement, a written statement, formal statement by an administrative agency, and something that distinguishes it from an administrative order is that it applies to a broad group, whereas orders apply only to a limited individual or entity. And a rule applies or explains the law, or it describes an agency policy or practice. We have to adopt it through a formal, established legal procedure, and once adopted, these rules have the effect of law. So why do agencies make rules? The problem is that statutes that the legislature adopts are very broad in general. They're difficult and slow to change, and they don't have enough detail to actually implement. So agencies extend those statutes by adopting administrative rules and do that in order to either administer procedures, implement programs, or explain the law in more detail. An example would be setting the procedure for applying for a permit or setting up a fee structure for that permit. That's too complex and too detailed to put into statute, and it works better in administrative rules, which can be more easily changed. So how do you find out Oregon rules if you want to access them? You can go to the Oregon Secretary of State webpage. This is the official location for administrative rules. On that page, and you can find that page simply by internet searching or Google searching for Oregon Secretary of State. It'll bring you to the home page for that agency. On the left-hand lower corner, there's a tab that says Administrative Rules. If you click on that tab, it brings you to all of the administrative rules. And what you'll see is a lot of numbers and titles. And the numbers the rules are broken down by agency. So when you get to DEQ's section, it'll give you a long list of numbers that will be the administrative rules. And the question is, well, then how do you read those rules? What do the numbers mean? So rule numbers are made up of 3 sets of numbers that have very specific purposes. The first 3 digits is a chapter number that's unique to each agency. And in the case of Oregon DEQ, we use 340. The middle number is the division number, which tells you a general topic area for the rules. And the last number is a rule number specific to each different rule. So when we go to adopt a rule, as I said earlier, we're required to follow a specific legal procedure. The steps for that procedure are set out here. The first is that we have to provide notice to the public, and we do that through written documents, putting information on our web, and publishing through the Oregon Bulletin. The next is that we have to provide the public an opportunity to comment on our draft rules. And I'll describe a little more in detail later, but there are several different opportunities that the public gets to comment on the rules. Next, we do have to have a public hearing. DEQ as an agency is required by law to have a public hearing to adopt any rule. And those are announced and noticed very far in advance. The public is welcome to attend those and can either testify verbally or present written testimony at the hearings. Next, as I said earlier, EQC actually has to formally adopt our rules for them to become law. And that happens at an open public meeting where they review the information, the commission reviews the information about the proposed rules and decides whether they need to be modified or they should adopt them. A couple of small legal steps that we have to do to actually complete the process. We have to file those rules with Oregon Secretary of State. The rules become effective when filed, and we have to retain all the documents that were generated during the creation of those rules so that in the future it can be determined whether the rules were legally properly adopted, and also it can be explored what steps led to the adoption of a particular rule. So in this case, we're talking about rules that will ultimately be adopted next year, the air toxics rules that are being worked on. And I've broken the steps or the procedures down into this year and next year's events or proceedings. So right now, at the beginning, we're in May of this year, we're having the webinar. The next step will be the next several months where we're going to hold technical work groups. Those groups will be discussing the very small scientific technical details that will go into the rules ultimately. After they compile that information towards the fall, we'll have policy forums. These will be open to the public, and there are opportunities for open public discussion about what direction the rules ought to take. The next step after that, later into the fall, will be advisory committees. And those are members of panels made up of people appointed by DEQ to discuss specific aspects or issues around the rules. And those committees can consist of technical experts, people that will be affected by the rules, or members of the public. And those meetings are open to the public as well. Beginning of next year, we'll have to hold fiscal advisory committee meetings. And those are to review the fiscal impacts of the proposed rules. DEQ will prepare a formal written statement that describes what we think the fiscal impact will be of adopting these rules. And once we've done that, we'll hold advisory committee meetings to review that document and that information to see if we've correctly captured what the fiscal impact is going to be. Following that, we'll enter into our public notice process, which will mean we'll finalize the draft rules, all the related notice documents that explain what the rules are about, why we're adopting, what the effects of the rules will be. We'll publish all that information to the public, and shortly after that we'll open a public comment period, which allows the public to formally offer comments on the draft rules. And during that same period we'll also have a public hearing. This will be noticed well in advance. The public can attend it and offer either verbal or written testimony at the public hearing. After that, we close the comment period so that all the comments can be reviewed and compiled. And OHA and DEQ staff will work together to draft a document that will ultimately go to the Environmental Quality Commission that will summarize what the rules are about, what they're trying to accomplish, what we think the effect will be of adopting them, and will also include summaries of the comments we've received from the public as well as responses to those comments. That process will take until the end of next year. So how can the public participate in the rulemaking process? So the earliest stage that the public generally would participate is advisory committees. And as I said, those are panels of people appointed by DEQ to offer input on the rules. They can be made up of members of the public, technical experts, or people who might be affected by the rules. The proceedings are all public. The meetings are noticed in advance, and the public can attend those meetings. Later in the rulemaking process, we hold our public comment period, where we formally announce that the rules are open for public comment, and we accept comments through our website and through regular US mail while that period is open. While the comment period is open, we'll hold our public hearing, which the public can attend and participate in. After all that occurs, we may go back and look at the rules to take into account all the public input we've received, the comments we've received, to see if the rules may need to be adjusted or adapted based on information from the public comments. Finally, the public can also participate or attend at least at the EQC meeting, in this instance of this rulemaking, that will occur at the end of next year. And the EQC will meet in public to discuss and review the proposed rules as well as all the information we provide that explains the background for the rules. The public can attend that meeting as well. So how can the public know what's happening with the rulemaking? In this instance with Cleaner Air Oregon, it's a joint effort between DEQ and Oregon Health Authority, but the ultimate rules will be adopted through DEQ's administrative process. So there is information about this on DEQ's rulemaking page. There's also information on the Cleaner Air Oregon page. We also use a mechanism called Gov Delivery, which is a mass email service. And we have a sign up for that in several places on our website where you can sign up to receive email messages or mobile phone text messages about upcoming rulemaking events. We post public notices on our webpage as well. We issue press releases. And we also post on Facebook and Twitter about any significant rulemaking events that are coming up. So how would you find the DEQ rulemaking page? You would either do just a Google search or an internet search for Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. It'll bring you to our main page. And on the left side of that page, there's a link that you can click almost to the bottom of links on the far left that will take you to the DEQ rulemaking page. Once you're at the DEQ rulemaking page, there are several pieces of information there. Towards the middle of the page is contact information for me if you have questions about the DEQ or the rulemaking process or this rulemaking process. And at the bottom left of the page, there's a link to sign up for Gov Delivery so that you can receive notices about rulemakings that are happening at DEQ. We also include a lot of informational links on those pages as well. Now I'd like to hand it back to Sarah, or Leah, to wrap things up.
Okay, thank you very much, Meyer, and thank you to all of our panelists today for the informative presentations. We're now going to turn to the question and answer portion of our program, so I'll invite the panelists to scoot in a little bit here. If you are watching via the live stream available on Cleaner Air Oregon website, you can send questions into our email box at info@cleanerair.oregon.gov. If you wish to send a question via Twitter, use @CleanerAirOR. If you are using the Adobe Connect platform, please send your questions via the comment function that is on your screen. And finally, if you wish to send us a question via Facebook, post it to the facebook.com/CleanerAirOregon. So we are collecting your questions now via those mechanisms, and we'll address as many of them as time allows. If we don't get to your question during this session today, we will be posting a question and answer document on cleanerair.oregon.gov next Monday. I'm going to start with a few questions that we received via our website before this panel started as folks start to send questions in. And panelists, please remember to have your microphone on when a question comes your way. So this first question is, what specific steps has Oregon DEQ taken to reduce the risk of harm from diesel particulate to low-income communities of color or other disproportionately vulnerable communities in the Portland metropolitan area? And I think I'm going to direct this question to Sarah. Sarah, let me know if you want me to repeat that.
All right, thank you, Leah. This is a very important issue because we know that we have populations statewide that are disproportionately impacted by air toxics, whether it's diesel particulate, emissions from gasoline engines, industrial emissions, or wood smoke. So Oregon DEQ is just really beginning to understand how to look at disproportionately impacted communities, otherwise known as environmental justice analysis, and the impacts of pollution. So this is, within the past few years, a fairly new topic for us. We're working and collaborating with Oregon Health Authority and other agencies that also look at disproportionate impacts on communities. So in the Portland area, we have done an environmental justice analysis. It was part of our Portland Air Toxics Solutions Study. We did that a few years back to understand, which populations were impacted and from which pollutants and then which sources. We did see higher impacts in this area from wood burning and from diesel particulate and from car and truck exhaust. For diesel particulate pollution, the Oregon DEQ continues to look for funding, bring in funding, and help those populations of engines that could be turned over. So we work with the engine owners. We also look at where those engines are running, and we do make efforts to try to direct resources to areas that have the dirtier engines running in them, say the dray trucks or the trucks that move freight back and forth. So we're really making efforts to do that. But again, it's a fairly new effort for us, and we have a lot more work to do.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, we know diesel is an important pollutant, so I'm glad we got that question, and thank you. The next question, I'm actually going to direct at Sarah as well. What plans are being taken to review air toxic levels in Umatilla and Morrow County? It sounds like this question comes from a woman named Amber, and it sounds like she's interested in Umatilla and Morrow, but we can, also expand, what's going on statewide, outside of just the Portland metro area where we've been hearing a lot of things recently.
Yes, thank you for that question. So DEQ looks at air toxics statewide, and we have several data sources for doing that. Our main data source is the EPA's National Air Toxics Assessment, which is a federal modeling study that models counties and census tracts nationally for many, many air toxics. So we use that as a screening tool to tell us where could the air toxics be and where we might want to monitor. The other thing we do is look at distribution of sources and populations statewide. So we will go around and do sample surveys, or we'll run air monitors, whether it's particulate or ozone or air toxics. We'll look at different areas of the state, and if we see higher levels, then it will give us a reason to place a monitor, a criteria pollutant monitor or an air toxics monitor. I don't think we have current monitoring going on in Morrow or Umatilla counties, but if there are concerns in those areas, we would really like to hear about them, and it will factor into our prioritization of where we place monitors.
Great, thank you, Sarah. The next question I'm going to send to Madonna with EPA. This question comes from Don in Lane County, and Don asks, is LRAPA, which is the Lane County Regional Air Protection Agency, the governing body for Lane County and not the EPA?
Thanks, Leah. Yes, the EPA has essentially oversight for all the states and all the local agencies, including LRAPA. But so Lane County, the LRAPA they make their decisions, but they're also overseen ultimately by Oregon DEQ as well.
Thank you, Madonna. Yes, and just as DEQ's regulations must be as strict as EPA's or stricter, Lane County has that same relationship with DEQ. So Lane County's rules must be as strict as DEQ's, but can also be stricter. The next question I would like to direct to Meyer, our rules coordinator at DEQ. Meyer, how does this process that the DEQ and OHA are undergoing right now, the regulatory reform, compare to a quote normal rulemaking process at DEQ?
It really is following the normal rulemaking process. It's only the time frame that varies. Because all the steps involved in the rulemaking are pretty much are required by law, and we don't create a new procedure for any particular rulemaking. In this instance, we're having a lot more public involvement because of the public interest, and we've extended the time frame both to allow for more public input and because of the complicated scientific technical issues. But in reality, the steps that we'll go through are pretty much identical to any rulemaking that we would do.
Great, thank you, Meyer. This next question I'm going to send Dave from OHA. And this question has to do with some of the recent events last week around the glass company Bullseye Glass. And the question is, Bullseye Glass was ordered to stop using lead amongst other metals in its manufacturing process after lead found at a nearby daycare exceeded the, quote, 24-hour benchmark by 3 to 4 times. And the question is, what is the 24-hour benchmark, and what regulation does that pertain to?
Thanks, Leah. So it's a good question. So the 24-hour screening level for lead is 150 nanograms per cubic meter, and it's actually equivalent to the National Ambient Air Quality Standard for lead that's developed by the EPA. And the reason that we use it for both our long-term ambient benchmark concentration and also for our short-term 24-hour screening level is because the health effect that we're most concerned about for lead is neurodevelopment for children. So if young children are exposed at the wrong time during brain development, that can cause a permanent change that will can alter their trajectory in life moving forward. And so that's why we think it makes sense to use that standard for both short-term and long-term benchmark. And the other reason that it was important for that action to be taken for the cease and desist order is because it was the monitoring location was right at a daycare center where the population that we're most concerned about, namely young children, were potentially affected, and that it couldn't be allowed to continue.
Great, thank you, Dave. The next question that I'd like to go to, I'll direct Sarah's way, and this is a question about the new health-based regulatory reform that we're embarking upon right now. This question comes from Catherine in Portland, and her question is, what are your plans to get AOI and OTA business associations on board with Cleaner Air Oregon's goal of health-based regulation and permitting?
Thank you. Great question. So if you saw Meyer's timeline that he just talked about or heard him describe the process of the rulemaking, there are many opportunities for stakeholder involvement. And so our stakeholders, we have a broad spectrum of stakeholders around that process. We have neighborhoods, public interest groups, environmental advocates, businesses, healthcare providers, and we have industrial associations, so Associated Oregon Industries and Oregon Business Association and others are part of that, Northwest Pulp and Paper. So DEQ is building a process where we're going to have a policy advisory committee address our program as we propose it and give input on all of the policy issues. So that is one way we're going to involve the industry associations. Another way is that throughout the process, any stakeholders, anybody who's interested in the process, can give us input at our public policy forums that we're going to hold, and also during the public comment period. So there are many ways. We really look forward to working in partnership with all of our stakeholders.
Thank you, Sarah. Next couple questions are health-related questions that I'm going to direct to Dave. The first one is, do Oregon benchmark and screening levels from OHA include employment or job considerations, or just health considerations?
Thanks, Leah. That's a good question. So the answer is that the benchmarks and the screening levels that we use are strictly health-based. There's no consideration of economic impact or of any consideration other than human health in the development of those benchmarks.
Thank you. And then the next question for you, what human health outcomes will DEQ and OHA attempt to achieve through the permanent rulemaking process? In other words, what level of excess cancer risk or what level of non-cancer health impacts will be set as standards to protect human health from industrial emissions of air toxics?
Great question. That's a question that that the technical advisory group that showed up on the timeline that Meyer showed. That's a key question for that group to address, and it's handled different ways in different states. And we're a part of the work of that group is to evaluate how that is done in other states that have risk-based regulations, and it varies from state to state.
Thanks, Dave. And Dave is one of the members of the rules team that will be evaluating the work of the technical work group during this process. So we'll be looking at the health considerations and working directly with OHA, as we've mentioned. The next question I would like to go to is for Meyer. Meyer, is Cleaner Air Oregon a new government agency?
Actually, I wouldn't say that it's an agency. It's a collaborative team between OHA and DEQ and then other partners as necessary. There's not it's basically made up of existing staff at existing agencies that are working together because of the particular issues presented in this particular rulemaking. So it's a way of uniting resources and taking advantage of resources of multiple agencies to work on a particularly complex problem.
Yes, thanks, Meyer. So to add to that, the Cleaner Air Oregon initiative was actually announced by Governor Kate Brown in April. And the charge there was for both DEQ and OHA to work together in creating these new regulations for industrial air toxics. So the two agencies are moving forth and working together to carry out that mandate. The next question I have is from Victor in Milwaukee, and I don't have names or locations for everyone, but I'll try and say them when I do. And this I'm going to send to Sarah. What are the long-term plans for monitoring some of the bigger air polluters in the state? How will DEQ be equipped and funded for long-term monitoring?
Well, this is something that DEQ is discussing a lot these days because we have recently received additional funding from the Oregon legislature to operate 2 additional full-spectrum air toxics monitors. And we are developing new ways to screen for air toxics and air pollutants statewide. So where we might go out and do a short-term study for a metal or another type of pollutant such as naphthalene. This is a very much evolving area for us, and part of what DEQ is doing right now is putting together a plan. So we've always had a monitoring plan. It's something that EPA requires, and now we're adding to that monitoring plan, in addition to where we're going to go to monitor for particulate and ozone. We're adding our priorities and where we plan to monitor for air toxics statewide. So this will include consideration of where our industrial sources located, should they be emitting air toxics, and also things like where there are wood smoke emissions, where are there busy roadways we might need to monitor nearby. So this will be developing, and people will have a chance to see the draft prioritization in our process and participate in that.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm actually going to direct another one your way, and this is kind of a combination of a few questions. One from Amy in Portland and one from Meg in Oceanside, because a couple of these have some common themes, and it's about the rulemaking. And I think you've alluded to some of this in some of your answers already. But the questions taken together, one is, why is bullseye glass being singled out when there are other issues in that area, potentially the Brooklyn rail yard, the fact that there's a daycare right there, a cement plant right there, and Meg from Oceanside similarly saying, how are you going to ensure that Cleaner Air Oregon is truly statewide? And another person is asking, why is Cleaner Air Oregon singling out the glass industry? So taken together, maybe you can talk a little bit about whether this initiative is singling out just the glass industry or just bullseye, or if it's not, how it's going to take a statewide approach.
All right, thank you for that question. So our work to understand emissions at Bullseye Glass and our response to emissions at Bullseye Glass based on our monitoring is really just the start of our larger comprehensive development of a health-based permitting program for facilities statewide. So there are two important things happening. One, we are responding to concerns about metals emissions in Portland and starting with the MOS screening and then monitoring and then working with the facilities, the glass facilities. We've understood that there are metal emissions there, and we have worked with those facilities, and we've got temporary regulations that address those specifically. But at the same time, we're not just looking at glass facilities. We're looking at all sources statewide that could have air toxics emissions, and part of our plan is to develop a comprehensive approach for those. And also, you know, in the long run, glass facilities will be covered by those regs as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Dave, this is a question for you. Where do environmental health scientists in the community go to ask questions about the scientific methods being used to evaluate risk?
Well, we've mentioned the technical advisory group, and those are open to the public. People can I think they can attend, and I think they can also there'll also be minutes that are made public, so that's the main way. That'll be the sort of the central place where those things are being discussed.
Thank you. And then this next question I think may go to both Sarah and Dave, and recognizing that I'm putting people on the spot with these questions, and if we need to have more follow-up afterwards, that's fine. As we said, we'll be posting answers on the website as well. This question comes from Frank, and the question is, what steps can DEQ take to educate the public as to the adverse health effects from wood smoke? Sarah, would you like to start off, and then Dave, if you have anything to add, please do.
Sure. So getting everybody up to speed on the adverse effects of wood smoke has been really a long-term effort for us and also for partners in county health authorities and in cities that we work with, because wood smoke causes problems, violations of the particulate standard. So this is something we've been working on for a long time, and I think now we're just starting to move into more communication about the effects of toxics in the wood smoke. Wood smoke contains benzene, polycyclic hydrocarbons, naphthalene, other things that are harmful to people's health. So as we move ahead in both the air toxics and the particulate prevention programs, we'll be working more with local communities to communicate those risks.
Thanks, Sarah. One thing that I might add to that is that as we get a better idea of where different air toxics are a problem and where wood smoke is the most problematic, I think we already know some of that, we can focus those kinds of education efforts in those areas where people are most affected.
A little bit more to add to that too, as I think of what we've done over the years. So there is information on DEQ's website, and if you look at the websites of some of our partner agencies, the counties and the cities, you will find it there. And I know that we have made efforts to reach out to healthcare providers as well.
Thanks, Sarah. And actually, just to stick with you for a moment, I have a question on here in the same vein as other issues that are really important that are beyond industrial air toxics. This person is wondering, what will Cleaner Air Oregon do about air pollution from cars? So maybe you can talk a little bit about what the agency has done in that vein and where we're at.
Sure. The new regulations we're developing for health-based permitting will not have anything to do with cars. They're not going to be focused on cars at all. However, DEQ and EPA have several programs that deal with emissions from vehicles, and they are one of our biggest health risks for air toxics, especially in highly populated urban areas, and for people who live close to roadways. We know that they have higher risks from these pollutants. So DEQ has adopted the California Clean Air standards for cars. So the cars you buy in the state will be just as clean as those in California, and this has gone beyond the federal requirements. So we do have a good fleet. It's turning over pretty quickly, and when we look at pollutants like benzene, we see it dropping. Benzene comes from cars and some other sources, but a lot of it comes from car engines, and over the last 10 years, we've seen that drop by about half. So Oregon has also promoted the electric infrastructure, and alternative fuels will go a long way too to cleaning up car engines.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, there's questions about some of these other pollutants or other sources of pollutants, I guess I should say, are really important. And while the regulatory reform that we are undertaking right now is really around industrial sources of air toxics or known as stationary sources, we definitely want to underscore the importance of some of these other sources of pollutants that people are concerned about as well, and acknowledge that there are certainly health impacts from those pollutants as well. Next, I'd like to turn to Madonna. This is a question from Jacqueline in Portland. And Madonna, can you just say from the federal perspective, what you think about this plan or this initiative that Oregon is undertaking to do a regulatory reform around air toxics?
Well, EPA is really, we're kind of excited, and we're also very excited that Oregon DEQ has asked for input from EPA and asking us to at least be on the advisory committee. This is an excellent opportunity that in this age of reduced resources and everything, EPA doesn't really have the funds to go out and do this site-specific place risk thing. However, and also one of the priorities of our administrator is working with communities, and I think that by going ahead and looking at the other sources that aren't caught or haven't been under any of the federal regulations and stuff is an excellent opportunity to begin working more community at the community level.
Thank you, Madonna. Next question is for Meyer. Meyer, for the rulemaking process, the regulatory reform that we are undertaking, when can the public expect changes to actually be implemented, and what can we expect them to be?
So taking the second part first, we don't know yet what the changes are going to be, because that's the process we're engaged in right now, is to develop those rules based on the science, based on public input. So we can't say yet. That'll be developing through the rulemaking. In terms of when things will take effect, the rules will actually go to EQC next December 2017 to be adopted. They legally take effect as soon as they get filed after they've been adopted, but then there will be, I assume, a rollout process as different stages of the rules come into play. So I don't think we really know exactly what the time frame of implementation will be. That's something else that's going to develop through the rulemaking, and I think it'll be discussed as part of the public process to figure out what a constructive, realistic time frame is to do the implementation, but that will develop through the rulemaking process.
Thanks, Meyer. And if I might, just a follow-up on that. So you went through the different legal processes and the different opportunities for people to participate in the rulemaking. And I know you touched on this, but if you could just remind folks, if people are thinking that they don't really have time for an advisory committee participation level, and they just want to be sure, though, that they don't miss the opportunity to look at the draft rules before they go to the commission in 2017, what is the best way for them to be sure that they see those draft rules during the public comment period so that they can comment on those?
I would say there's two paths a person could use to keep track of the process and to make sure they see the draft rules. The first is they can just check our DEQ page. We'll have a specific web page dedicated to this rulemaking. and it'll be linked back and forth with the Cleaner Air Oregon page. So you'll always be able to tell what stage of the rulemaking we're at through those. The second that's, I think, very helpful is if you go to those pages or the main DEQ page, you can sign up for Gov Delivery, and you'll automatically receive notices either through email or through text that will tell you when any significant event is coming up, and that would include when we're publishing the rules to the public and when we're starting to take public comment. And finally, that would tell you when the public hearing is going to take place, which is a significant opportunity for people to participate.
Great, thank you, Meyer. The next question is for Dave. Dave, this one says, I live in the Bullseye Glass area. Soil tests from my organic garden tested at average background levels for lead, arsenic, and cadmium, and my plant tissues tested at toxic levels for cadmium and lead. Is it safe to eat the produce that I grow in my garden?
Thanks for the question. This is a hard question to answer for generally speaking, in generalities. There is a process, there's a way on DEQ's website to submit soil results. Like, so if people who have collected their own soil samples and had them analyzed, you can submit the results to that website, and there's a way for us to get back in touch with you and talk individually about those results. One of the things that is generally difficult about interpreting those kinds of vegetation samples is that many labs that do it, that do those analyses, do them in different ways. And the one reason that's important, one particular aspect that's really important is many of them report results in dry weight. That means, so concentration of the metal per gram of solid, totally dry vegetation. And the reason that's important is because that's not the way that you consume it. So if your result is in dry weight, the actual concentration in the plant as you would eat it might be much less. And in fact, many plants, for example, kale, the average moisture content is 85%. So it's almost a factor of 10 difference that can be present if you're comparing dry weight to wet weight. And like that's one example, and I think it's too much to talk about generally how to interpret it, but what people should do and can do is submit the results to the Safer Air Oregon website, and DEQ and OHA can get back to you individually to talk about your results.
Great, thanks, Dave. The next question, I'll turn to Sarah and Meyer. This one's a little broad, but it seems to be about the regulatory reform. And the question is, why should we trust this process? What is going to be different about it?
That is a broad question. DEQ is making every effort to put together a process that develops health-based rules that looks at all of the best examples from around the country. So, we're looking at things like what risk levels do people choose, what models do they use, how do they use those models, how do sources get in and out of the process, what do they have to do once they trigger a level of concern, how do people get required to install controls into their facility. So we have a technical advisory committee that will be very rigorous and look at a lot of those technical details on risk and different pollutants that we would potentially consider, the very wide spectrum of pollutants that we're looking at. And then we have a lot of opportunities for people to check in along the way, give us feedback, give us their input, and then we have the policy advisory committee plus the policy forums. And I feel that we have really constructed an open and robust process to develop these regulations, and I think we're going to end up with a really great result that fills that gap we have in our regulations where we don't specifically look at risk at industrial facilities. We are going to have a process that allows us to do that.
Thanks, Sarah. And Meyer, I thought maybe you could speak to this a bit too. just from the perspective of your position at DEQ, you are the agency's rules coordinator, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what that means and what your charge is at DEQ to make sure that we follow the appropriate and legally mandated process throughout this regulatory reform.
I think the agency as a whole, and myself as an individual, we're intensely committed to public involvement and public participation in the process. There really is not any place in the rulemaking process where we can hide anything that we do. Advisory committee meetings are open to the public. Every document that's produced or relied on in the rulemaking gets published on our website, so any person has access to all of that information. When we do our public notice process, all of the documentary information is available on the website, and we have a number of different ways that public comments can be submitted, and we don't have any means that would allow us to filter or remove or delete any kind of comments that we get. They all, it's an automated process that compiles all of the comments. And finally, we, if nothing else, we have the public hearing process where people, if they were to see some sort of flaw in the process itself, that would be an opportunity for them to comment on it. But we do work intensely hard at involving the public in every stage of the rulemaking process. And that's not just true for this rulemaking. It's true of every rulemaking that we do, and not just to meet the legal requirements, but to meet an ethical commitment of the agency that we are serving the public, and that our goal is to benefit the public, and that we can't do our job without public participation. So there's really no part of the process that would enable us to hide anything that we're doing. And I think we've used all the mechanisms that we can find and we can think of to try to involve and advise the public about what we do.
Leah, can I just add on something to that answer?
Please
a little
do,
bit?
Sarah.
Something I neglected to mention also is that our leadership team at DEQ, our director and our managers, are in full support and behind this process. So we have really good alignment. The governor's office is also following this process and expects results. And also we are partnered with Oregon Health Authority, which is really, it's new for us that we're developing health-based regulations in partnership with the health experts, and I think that's also going to contribute to really excellent regulations.
Thanks, Sarah. I agree, and I can vouch for that commitment too. Next question is for Madonna. Madonna, the question is, how did EPA establish the lead benchmark, and are they, the benchmarks, ever re-evaluated?
Thank you. I'm not sure which lead benchmark is meant, but if you're talking about the criteria pollutant, yeah, that goes through a special. It's not an air toxics number, but that goes through our criteria air pollutants people and the planning, and they've done that, and they do that with extensive modeling and extensive comment, and working with different agencies to come up with that number. And I don't know if it's been recently reduced or not, but I know that that's one thing that's always being looked at.
Thank you. Next question for Dave. Next two questions, perhaps. Dave, this question comes from Mary in Portland. Will Oregon continue with ATSAC, which is the Air Toxics Science Advisory Committee, for development of air toxic standards, or will the Oregon Health Authority develop a new process?
That is a great question, and that's one of the questions that we're asking internally also right now. ATSAC has served really well in setting up very health protective air quality goals in the ambient benchmark concentrations. And one of the things that is great about it is the array of technical expertise that they have. However, it is a volunteer committee, which means that no one is paid to be part of the committee, and so it's nobody's full-time job to be to be on that committee, and that has been kind of a time limiting step. It means that the committee can't work maybe as fast as may be required for this rulemaking process. However, we're in those conversations right now about what will the relationship be between ATSAC and this rules advisory and the rules process.
Great, thank you, Dave. And the next question for you as well. The question says, people are blaming DEQ for the layoffs at Bullseye Glass because of the additional materials, cobalt, manganese, nickel, and selenium, that were added to the list of restricted raw materials in the cease and desist order, even though air monitoring data hadn't shown evidence that they had exceeded benchmarks or health standards. What is your explanation?
So from my perspective, while it was lead that was kind of the catalyst for the cease and desist order, because that is a well-known neurotoxicant and the levels found were high and tied to Bullseye. For me, like a larger question or a larger problem about it was this sort of pattern of unpredictability that we'd seen starting back in October 2015, where arsenic and cadmium were very high. Because we didn't predict this high level of lead exposure, that told us that, and because we have this sensitive population right next door in the daycare, we didn't want to have this conversation about lead this week and have it about manganese next week. So the idea was to make sure that that what we have in place leads to predictably safe concentrations of metals in the air in the area.
Great, thank you, Dave. And we have just one final question, and that's for everybody on the panel. And because Dave is next to me, he's lucky and gets to go first, and I'll just go down the line, and each of you can answer this. The question is, if there's one thing that you want viewers to take away from this webcast today, what would it be?
I hope that people know and understand that how committed the Oregon Health Authority is to the health of all Oregonians, and including the most vulnerable, sometimes especially the most vulnerable. And it's our commitment to ensure that whatever gets into the rule is very protective of all, or the health of all Oregonians. I work with a lot of people, and everyone that I've met and talked to shares this commitment. We have families too, and we care about the health of Oregonians and their families.
I would say that I'm just very proud of how open and public our rulemaking process is, and we actively want as many people who have any interest in these things to participate as possible, and we very strongly welcome as much public participation as we can get in the process.
I'd like to emphasize that Oregon, with the Health Authority, is working very hard to build a comprehensive air toxics program for the state. We have done a good job controlling things like ozone and particulate over the years. We're advancing that approach into communities where we're looking at sources causing risk in a community and doing planning. And now we're adding on a layer for the GAP, which is for risk-based permitting or health-based permitting. We're also improving our monitoring, and so we'll be able to understand statewide through the use of MOS screening, modeling, and additional monitoring where problems are. So I feel like we're really making huge advances in science and public health protection.
And from the EPA point of view, what Oregon is doing is very proactive, and it's one of the few states that's going along developing this more comprehensive type of air toxics program. It also helps EPA a lot. I mean, based on recent things that have happened, this idea of the MOS study as using as a screening tool is kind of exciting, and so we have different people in our agency looking at it. It's like maybe if we can turn this over to some kind of citizen science kind of thing is another screening tool, because the monitoring, air toxics monitoring is very expensive. There are very few methods that just anybody could use to get really decent results, and so that's one of the most exciting things to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Madonna. Thank you to all of the panelists. Those were really informational presentations that you gave today, and especially for the question and answer session. We really appreciate that. So that's the time that we have for questions today. But again, as we mentioned, there will be a question and answer document that will be posted on the website for any questions that might be just coming in last minute that we didn't get to, or for anything that needs a little more thorough answer. And if you can also go to find that question and answer on cleanerair.oregon.gov, and that will be available next Monday afternoon. So I do want to conclude by covering some of the other engagement opportunities that we have coming up as part of Cleaner Air Oregon's rulemaking effort. Post the webinar today, we will be holding a second webinar on June 28th, and this one will be in the evening from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. on other statewide models of health-based regulations and permitting programs, and we'll be inviting public questions and dialogue during that session. DEQ and OHA will hold public policy forums in 4 different areas of the state in September and October 2016. DEQ and OHA will be appointing an advisory committee to make recommendations on the proposed rules as well. And we are currently asking for public input on the final composition of the advisory committee membership through the Cleaner Air Oregon website. This is a public comment period that is open right now and closes on the 27th. I want to emphasize that this does not solidify the individual members that will be on the committee, but rather the seats and the types of positions that will be on the committee. Later in the summer, we will have a process for anyone from the public to specifically nominate individuals for those advisory committee seats. And then DEQ will be releasing the proposed rules and seek public comment, as we discussed, on those rules from mid-May 2017 through mid-July 2017. And we will consider all comments before making our final proposal to the Environmental Quality Commission in December of 2017. So for a description of that timeline and these different public engagement opportunities that are available to you for this rulemaking, please visit cleanerair.oregon.gov. And thank you.